Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to Charlie Tolhurst Show live on the 18th of July. One more day before Freedom Day in the UK, and I'm joined by Labour Party supporter Zach Chambers to round up the latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Hello, Zach. Now we're going to start with the digest. I want to start though with big news on this week's digest, and probably the biggest news story of the week. I call this the ping mania of the government because it has been announced, Zach, that the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, tested positive for COVID-19. And that has meant a couple of his close contacts, including the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, have both had to self-isolate. And Zach, what is your reaction to this news? Just broken?
Yes, Charlie. Yes, the Sajid Javid yesterday caught COVID. He is double jabbed, I should point out. So it proves that double jabbed doesn't fully protect you from getting COVID, mate. He got a COVID lateral. He got it on a lateral flow, the first positive test. He said he felt a bit groggy on the announcement. So we don't know what symptoms he really had because he said he felt was groggy. I can only presume he's maybe a bit of a temperature, maybe a bit of a cough or something like that. That's my definition of a groggy, having a groggy. But the real controversy this morning came when it was announced that originally the Prime Minister and Rishi Sunak, who Sajid Javid met, I think this is due to his social care, wouldn't be self-isolating, but instead doing a test to release sort of thing, where it's a pilot scheme that's done in government, where you get, rather than fully self-isolation, you get a daily test to see whether you come back positive or negative. If you're negative, then you can go do essential work. Although you can only go between essential work and back, you can't do anything else outside of that. That was originally going to be the case, but there was a huge outroar, Charlie, about it. That at the end of the day, I think the Prime Minister and Chancellor bowed to public pressure because they were part of this test to release pilot. That it would be one rule for them, one rule for everyone else. I mean, there was about 500 or so thousand self-isolations, although people got pinged. So yeah, it was one rule for them, basically one rule for them, one rule for everyone else. At the end of the day, they about 10:30 this morning, they capitulated and basically decided to self-isolate at the end of the day. And the Prime Minister self-isolated at Chequers. I presume he'll do PMQ remotely on Wednesday because he'll have to self-isolate for about 10 or so days.
Is that the last one before the recess?
It is. It is the last one before recess for about 6 or so weeks. And yeah, he'll be doing it remotely. This week has we're moving to what, not from a pandemic now, Charlie, but what we call a ping-ademic, and where everyone is literally being pinged by the NHS COVID-19 app, and they're being told to self-isolate. So yeah, 500 or so thousand this week, Charlie. If the estimations of 100,000 a day are true, then we're looking at millions of people having to self-isolate and being pinged, which is the last thing that the economy really needs if you're looking at it from an economic perspective. So this is going to be a very worrying couple of weeks for people having to isolate, businesses. Tomorrow is supposed to be what is known in the UK as Freedom Day. But it looks like the Prime Minister, he can't even celebrate his own Freedom Day because he'll be in isolation. Just the irony in that, Charlie. It's just the absolute irony of that. The Prime Minister boasts about Freedom Day and he can't even celebrate it himself, which is quite something. It is quite something. Charlie.
I was just going to say, Zach, as well, when I come on air, obviously I'm live on YouTube and Facebook. I wasn't sure if my camera was working this week. I think it is, Charlie. It's working finally. I'm so happy to be seen this week. But yeah, Zach, I just want to say though, like I know that the vaccines are not 100% effective, but I think Sajid Javid is, by what I'm hearing, okay. I think he's in good health.
Yes.
Which is fantastic to hear. But it does still show you that this virus, even if you're fully vaccinated, you can still get it. And we still need people not to be, as I mentioned, you need to still be aware of that this thing is never going to go away. It's still going to be with us for the rest of our lives. And whilst I'm here, I'm now going to play for you Savage Javid's message following his positive diagnosis for COVID-19. Have a listen to this.
Hi everyone, I just wanted to update you all that I've tested positive for COVID. I was feeling a bit groggy last night, so I took a lateral flow test this morning and it's come out positive. So I'm now self-isolating at home with my family until I get the results of a PCR test. I'm grateful that I've had 2 jabs of the vaccine, and so far my symptoms are very mild. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank everyone that's been involved in our national vaccine rollout program. Truly the best of its kind anywhere in the world. If you haven't had your jabs yet, please get out there and get them as soon as you can. And if, like me, you might feel a bit groggy, or you think you might have come into contact with someone who's positive, please also take a lateral flow test too. If everyone plays their part, you're not only protecting yourself and your loved ones, but you're also safeguarding the NHS and helping to preserve our way of life.
Thank you to the Health Secretary there, Savage Javid, for that announcement. I wish you a speedy recovery. It wasn't just Savage Javid who also tested positive. If you've seen the British Grand Prix that I'll come on to in a minute, McLaren CEO and team boss Zak Brown also contracted coronavirus last week as well, and he's currently in self-isolation. So we'll come more on to Zak Brown in a minute. But Zach, moving on to the next part of the digest now, Formula One. We'll move on to Formula One now. Lewis Hamilton winning. Oh, apologies, we've got Zach on mute there. I forgot to unmute him. Zach, I'll repeat that again. Sorry. Formula One British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton of Mercedes claiming his 8th British Grand Prix win. But however, though, it wasn't all plain sailing for him on the first lap as the 2 title rivals collided down at Copse.
Oh, Charlie, this was something. Lap 1 was quite extraordinary. Verstappen obviously got a good start. Hamilton did as well. But nevertheless, when it got to Copse, oh my words, they had they're probably their biggest collision to date with Max Verstappen at Copse, a 51G accident, Charlie, sideways into the barrier, and it was a big, nasty impact for Max Verstappen. And he was in hospital. He's put on Instagram this evening that he is okay, thankfully, and that is great to hear. Now, in terms of the incident myself, what I think about it, I think there's 2 ways you can look at this, Charlie. I thought the penalty was right, and I'll tell you why. I think at the end of the day, I think on Lewis's part, I think he did not lead. I think he went too deep, and at the end of the day, he could have, he could have left a little bit enough room, and he might have got through at Copse, and that could have been quite a move. We'd have been celebrating it afterwards. I think Max did weave a little bit just before Copse, but then seemed to back out of it and try to give enough space. I think Max looked where he was going. I think at the end of the day, I think Lewis didn't take the line rather than taking the curb. He took a much more wide line, and he wasn't ahead at the corner. So I think at the end of the day, I don't think it was deceptive. I don't think it was deceive. I don't think it was a deliberate accident. I would put more Lewis at fault for the accident. I think the penalty was right at the end of the day. It didn't really matter, though, because he still won the race in the last 3 laps. Thanks to let's just say, quite the drive to try and overtake Leclerc in the last 3 laps. So Leclerc, who did a brilliant race, by the way, and managed to get ahead of Hamilton after the incident. It was good enough, for Leclerc was behind. He managed to take positions, and he managed to get ahead until the last 3 laps. Obviously, I mean, Leclerc did a good strategy, and I think it helps as well with the likes of Norris and Bottas struggling as well. I mean, we'll talk about the fact that Norris was in it. That was quite something. But tactically, Mercedes played it right for, trying to get Bottas out of the way as soon as possible. And Hamilton was so fast on his tyres. He just had the better pace this weekend. He had a good weekend, Hamilton. Very good weekend. He won. He got Friday qualifying. He got fastest then. He didn't win the sprint race, which I thought was all right, actually, for the first time round. I thought it was all right.
Yeah, the sprint.
It was a so-so. Verstappen got officially pole for that because they designate pole if you win the sprint race, not the Friday qualifying. You're just the fastest driver. But the race at the end of the day was all that matters. Verstappen taking out Cops for that one. And it was a scary accident, actually, as well. It was a really scary accident. And I am actually going to show you what he put out. First of all, I am glad I'm okay. It was quite an impact. Obviously, very disappointed with being taken out like this. Penalty was does not help us in any way and doesn't do us justice to the dangerous move Lewis made on track. Watching celebrations after the race whilst in hospital is disrespectful and sportsmanlike, but we move on. And I have to say, Christian Horner was fuming after the race, Charlie. Christian Horner was absolutely fuming with the interviews he'd had. Helmut Marko suggested that Lewis should be given a race ban.
Wow.
I think that goes a bit too far, personally, race ban. I mean, the 10 seconds time penalty was about right. I mean, given the severity of the accident, I probably would have given him, if I was going to be harsh, I would probably give him a 5-second stop go. But yeah, I think you can understand why Max is coming out with that with a 51G impact. He's okay. We don't know whether he's got any concussion in him or such, that because he did feel light and weak in the head. So that's the problem really with what's happened. So clearly there's been an absolute war of words between the Mercedes camp and the Red Bull camp. I mean, Christian Horner, was pretty fuming in his post-race interview. And just saying, it doesn't, I think was taught of the victory, it wasn't a deserved victory and all that sort of thing. You could tell he was pretty furious. The stewards obviously thought the same, but he did even a 10-second stop-go penalty, Charlie. I'm sorry, just a time penalty, excuse me.
And he did serve it in the pits.
He did serve it in the pits. If he had a stop-go penalty, he would have to serve it 4 laps or so later without changing the tyres, so he would have to gone in the pits again. But nevertheless, Charlie, I honestly thought you could write that. That could have just gone in the scripts, like 10-second time penalty, then goes on to win the race. It's just that's typical Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, but anyway, I will show you the results now. It was Hamilton, as he said, and then Leclerc, who hold on so well, Charlie, ended up 3.8 seconds behind the last
third.
Lando Norris, good race from Lando, apart from the fact he got ruined in the pit stop. He could have been on a podium, I think, if he had it not been for that pit.
Yeah.
Stop. Ricardo, impressive weekend. I think it's best result yet for McLaren.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
6 good races.
Sainz pit stop was long. That's why he was dropped back.
Alonso 7th, 8th Stroll, Ocon 9th, Tsunoda 10th, getting the point there. Gasly 11th, Russell 12th. I think he'll be happy with the weekend, Russell. He did a sensational job on Friday.
Qualifying
another
was
great
fantastic.
job Saturday. He managed to hold on. Absolutely stunning, Charlie. I have to say, if he's not going to get the Mercedes seat, then when he's ever going to get the Mercedes seat, I think he absolutely deserves that seat next year. Giovinazzi 13th, Latifi 14th, Raikkonen 15th. Perez with an awful weekend in 16th. He sprint qualifying obviously determines where you're going to start on Sunday, and his spin damaged The chassis, he had to change parts. They had to start pit lane. Mazepin 17th, 18th Schumacher. Vettel had a retirement, and Verstappen, we know what happened to him.
Didn't Perez collide with Raikkonen?
Perez, yeah, there were. I can't remember. Perez, I think, spun on his own, I believe, on sprint qualifying. I can't remember what happened in the race.
I heard both of them were under investigation, I think.
Yeah,
what I heard
and I
from the
think
stewards.
there was no further action as far as I'm aware, Charlie, as well. So, yeah, in terms of that one, there was no further action from what I heard, which was, yeah, that was what I last heard. We don't know. I know that Verstappen's put out saying it's okay and everything. We don't know the full condition. I imagine we're going to hear more from Red Bull and the FIA. He was at the medical centre and they took doctors. But he's all right because he's typing. He did type that message up. You know, Hamilton's response to that was Max was aggressive and everything. I don't agree. Well, maybe the build-up, maybe yes. Anyone else, normal person, going to try and defend that position. I agree. But at the end of the day, I don't think. I think at the end of the day, it was rightly Hamilton's fault. Both were at fault in some way. In racing incident, if you're going to include the build-up to that, I think for the corner alone, Hamilton's fault and a 10-second penalty, I thought that was right. So, yeah, that sums my thoughts up on that one.
Yeah, Zach, I have to say, I'm kind of agreeing with Christian Horner on this one. I think, I don't want to sound bad about Lewis, but I think what he done was, I know he won the race today, but I kind of feel a bit disappointed. I mean, Verstappen, he defended so aggressively at the start. You could see Verstappen really didn't want to let him through, but
yeah,
you could see Max. They nearly collided at Abbey. Actually, it was literally tire to tire, inchy contact. It was very close. So close.
I mean, you know, Charlie, this is the gap's 8 points in the championship now. It was 33 going into Sunday, which is quite the gap to go down. Obviously, that means Verstappen still has an advantage of 8 points, but it's closer than what it was to be. And it'll be quite something if Lewis Hamilton does end up going winning the championship this year, because today will be one of those key moments. And you could say, so if you really on the funny side of things, that Lewis Hamilton will do anything to win a championship, including potential manslaughter, if I'm going to go that far, or cause an injury. That's how far he'll go to the championship, and this will be his 8th if he wins it this year. I wouldn't imagine someone just deceitfully, deliberately doing that. I don't think that's his intentions, but it's one for the joke book if he does end up winning the championship this year. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. So Formula One move on to Hungary now. Zach, before I move on to the next part of the show, have you got what is your message to Zach Brown? Of course, after he tested positive for COVID.
Oh yes, he's double vaccinated as well, so I was aware. Obviously, he seems like he's fine. Obviously, hope he gets better soon. And I presume he was going to make a full recovery because it doesn't sound like his symptoms are that bad at all by the sounds of it.
He did, by the way, confirm he did actually take part virtually during a press conference last week. If you watched the YouTube video, you did see he actually did take part from home with the team principals press conference, which you can watch on YouTube. But yeah, Formula One head to Hungary before the summer break. And then we're back racing again at the end of the month at Spa. But moving on now, Zach, from the digest to Sportsround, really the only thing in Sportsround to talk about this week is the NASCAR action, because we're getting to the point in the season now where the playoffs are approaching and it's all to play for the chase, isn't it? We go to, I think, New Hampshire for the Foxwoods Resort Casino 301 this weekend. What do you think of this circuit? Who do you put your money on this weekend to qualify for the chase?
Let's look at, I'm going to get the lineup up here, actually. Where is it? Here it is. Here it is. Bush on pole, Truex, and the race looks like it's just about to start, by the way. So, yeah. But Bush on pole, Truex alongside him, Elliott 3rd, Bush 4th, Bowman 5th, Hamlin 6th, 7th is Blaney, Reddick is 8th, Bailey's Knight, Carlson 10th, Quinn Hoff, Croydon, Joyce, and Ryan Priest, McDonald are to the rear for expected issues, and so is Bubba Wallace for adjustments. There's a competition caution at 30. I imagine that might be due to rain. But yeah, let's bring up standings, because this is also crucial. This is the last race before the 3-week break, by the way. I should point that out.
Is it 2 or 3 week break, something like that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a 3-week break. I believe it's due to the Olympics, which is
yeah.
quite something. Imagine breaking for the Olympics in
Yeah, we'll
anyway,
talk more about that a bit. We're going to talk about that in a minute, actually.
It is Kyle Busch that's leading the standings. Kyle Larson, sorry. 8:26, 165 ahead of Truex. Hamlin is currently 4th, as well. Oh, hang on, it's Hamlin. Sorry, Hamlin's in the leading the points. Let me get up.
There we go. We've got the standings up now.
Yeah, there you go. Sorry, that was ranked.
So Hamlin's leading. We've got Larson 2nd, Kyle Busch 3rd, Chase Elliott is 5th, William Byron is 4th, Logano 6th, Truex Jr. 7th, Blaney 8th, Ken Harvick 9th, Brad Keselowski 10th. I think 16 go through. To the playoffs.
16 go through. If you finish within the top 30, you run a race, you're locked in. So the likes of Larson, Byron, Elliott, Truex, Blaney, Keselowski, Bowman, Bell, Michael McDonald are all currently locked in. And Chris Buescher would make it if he got in. And I believe Dylan Reddick, Harvick, and Hamlin would also make it as well if it gets through. It depends on how much wins. So actually, let me look. So there's 1, 2, 3. Hang on. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, there's several drivers in there. So the likes of Buescher would make it, and I think Hamlin as well would make it based on points, even though he hasn't won a race this season. So he's likely to make it mathematically at the moment. So yeah, that'll be crucial for Hamlin, and we'll have to see what Chris Buescher comes out with, because this is important for him to get some points and finish ahead of Dylan Reddick to get into the chase. It's not far now, Charlie, I don't believe, until September. So yeah, this is currently important. This is where it's starting 22, I think, round 21, 22. Not long now, but 4 or 5 races until the chase, all to play for, I think.
It's a big one for NASCAR. So please keep update. Foxwoods Resort Casino 301. That'll be at New Hampshire. You can watch that action on NBC in the United States. There'll be channels that you can go on to watch that event. But we're going to move on now from from NASCAR to the Olympics, because this week, on Friday of this upcoming week, the Olympic Games in Tokyo, the 2020 Olympics Games in Tokyo will begin. It's 1 year late due to the pandemic. However, though, Zach, there has been some reports of a mini outbreak in the athletes' camp, with a few members testing positive and some in isolation.
That's right, Charlie. I look forward to the Olympics this week. Starts Friday, the opening ceremony. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be getting up a little bit earlier for some of the events. I'll probably get about 9 o'clock normally, just so I can watch some of the events on. I obviously won't watch everything because it's too early in the morning for some of it, and so the earliest I can get up is 9 o'clock. But there will be plenty of events that will be going on at that time, thankfully. But nevertheless, Charlie, there has been this is taking place in the country that has a state of emergency and no fans attending. There is a bit of a COVID situation there. And it also applies, Charlie, to the Olympic Village, because 6 Team GB athletes have been forced to isolate because of contact tracing. 6 athletes, 2 staff members coming to close contact with a member of the public who had a COVID-19 on their flight to Tokyo. All 8 must now pass 2 PCR tests 48 hours before allowing to mingle with other members of the squad again. But understood people like Diana Smith, Katrina Johnson, Thompson, Laura Mora, that's the athletics, not affected. But nevertheless, Charlie, COVID concerns are real. I think one athlete already has a COVID test, positive about COVID already. So, and it's already plunged the event into a little bit of instability. Players like Fabina Mosher, Camilo Masalusi, all tested positive on arrival, I believe, in the South Africa camp. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see some more positive cases, really, to be fair, Charlie. There's going to be a situation where some are going to have to self-isolate and potentially miss events. I think what's probably going to happen as well, which is not great, but it is what it is. And the main thing is the event is still going ahead, thankfully.
It is that, and I do honestly fear that these games are going to be so strange, having wearing masks and social distancing, and obviously athletes are not allowed to mingle around with other countries and bubbles. It's going to be really strange, especially under Tokyo's state of emergency, which have only vaccinated 20% of the population have had first doses. It's just, I can't describe it. I mean, how the Paralympics are going to go next month, we just don't know, but we'll keep you updated on the Olympics. I believe it starts this Friday. The opening ceremony will be on, and then I think officially from Saturday the event will kick off. But yeah,
that's the case.
I don't know what to say about it. I hope all the athletes there, if you're watching this from around the world, particularly in Japan, because by the way, I'm on the internet, so you can be seen all over I can be seen all over the world here. Just to confirm that if you're in Japan right now, and obviously to the Team G8B athletes, stay safe out there. Make sure that you are following the rules that are in place, particularly the strict rules that you all have to follow. Formula One had to do that last year in Austria. I just really hope that this happens for the Olympics. I know it's going to be horrible seeing no fans attending, but we just have to do our best to try and keep athletes and sports stars safe. But we're going to move on now from Sportswatch to a little bit more, should I say, positivity, because it's time for Charlie's Good News. Today, Charlie's Good News finally launches once again. I want to start my good news off today because today was officially the hottest day of the year. 31 degrees was recorded in London Heathrow today, which was actually the hottest day of the year so far. It beat the record set yesterday. So, yeah, that was certainly 31 degrees in Heathrow recorded. So the hottest day of 2021 so far. But in terms of the good news this week, I'm just loading my page now. Good news for the 18th of July. What have I got for you guys this week? We're going to start off with my good news segment on something very, very interesting about an artist touring in an ice cream van. So let's have a look at this news as we get it up. So the first news story is about an ice cream van, which has been touring. Now, the artist in question who has been touring in an ice cream van is someone called Anne Nicholson. Annie Nicholson has been using her creativity to publicity to explore grief. This summer, via the medium ice cream, she'll be hitting the road to talk about mental health during COVID. Now, she's also called, and I quote this now, the Fandigo Kid, has tasty plans for summer and autumn. She will tour the UK in an ice cream van, dishing out mint, choc chip and strawberry ice creams, but her conversations will be about mental health. Since leaving most of her close family in accident New York in 2011, Nicholson has used the publicity to explore issues in grief. Her work of art, often institutions and galleries, places where some people do not feel comfortable, and she is reasoned that a fun, less formal would work well with her. Her work with young people and marginalised communities in London sparked the idea to do a tour in an ice cream van. Visitors can pop in for a free ice cream or attend a talk workshop. Wow, what an incredible news story. That is certainly positive news right there. Now, this isn't it. The next one is interesting. Former solicitor 96, Archie White, is awarded a fine arts degree from East Sussex College at 96 years and 56 days. He retired. Now Archie White retired at 92, but he said he wasn't too bothered about being the oldest graduate or not, and thoroughly enjoyed studying at East Sussex College. He said a friend of mine studied there the year before me, and she was quite enjoying it. So that gave me an idea when I retired to come here, do a BA Fine Arts degree, said the amateur who was born when George V was on the throne. Average weekly wage of £103 in today's money. Wow, that is massive as well. Incredible news as well. Now, some more local news now. This is more local indeed. And this is an Essex Children's University is helping with dream jobs. Now, it might be a surprise to you to know how many kids have just spent 9% of their walking life in the classroom. But Debbie Bennett set up the Essex Children's University in order to give recognition to achievements outside of a school setting. It was established in 2009 as a schools-based programme. It became a charity in 2016. Working in partnership with the schools, the programme helps to deliver a love of learning in children and get them thinking about their careers' futures. The charity works with a variety of schools, including the Bursdunda Trust, which oversees various schools in Basildon. Children are issued with a passport to learning where they record activities in order to attain certificates. So, yes, that's my good news this week. I tell you what, Zach, the news stories this week certainly were very positive, weren't they?
Oh, thank goodness. This is a breath of fresh air, Charlie. That was a breath of fresh air. I like the ice cream van bit. You know, going up, or was it a van? Was it just a van? I can't remember. Was it?
Yeah, it was a van. Yeah, a van with mental health.
A man with mental health. Great. Goodness me, how wonderful. That's so uplifting.
It is. It's incredible. I honestly love. Thank you so much to everyone who's taking part with the positive news. I'll be doing it all again next week. Just please, guys, bring in your good news. Please let me know, and obviously visit GB News as well to watch Simon McCoy's segment during the week as well. We want people to just listen to good news. It's very, very important that we bring positive news to you, especially during the times we've all been experiencing at the moment. But moving on now from my good news now, we're going to go straight to the Viewpoint now. Now the Viewpoint. And we're going to talk, Zach, about e-scooters. Something very different in this week's Viewpoint. Now, the Viewpoint question is, should e-scooters be banned from British roads? What is your opinion on this, Zach?
Well, this is interesting. Let's talk about the purpose of, e-scooters. They're a sort of electric scooter. They're sort of designed, sustainably, just for the road and everything like that. But they're used for government-backed trials on certain areas. Newcastle, Bristol, Bournemouth are doing. In London, they're trying e-scooters. It's used for environmentally friendly way to travel. They can reach up to 68 miles an hour, but rental e-scooters have a maximum of 15. They're doing the trials happening in London is used to create go slow areas where the top speed is reduced to 8. So sometimes it'd probably be faster to run than to use an e-scooter. Now, unfortunately, the only ones that obviously can be used on the road publicly are the ones part by government trial. You can only use it on private land if you own it and not on public roads, cycle or pavement. They're not a specific law for it, but nevertheless, anyway, it clearly is causing problems though, because I want to report earlier something. The 16-year-old died from a hit and run with an e-scooter actually in Bromley on earlier today. Actually, the person was taken to hospital and died sadly. It proves that these things are quite dangerous. So is cars, so is all that sort of thing, Charlie. But this one seems to be cause a particular annoyance to car users and those who are on the scooters. Now, I don't know who caused the incident and stuff like that. I don't know if someone paying attention, but they do seem to be causing grievances. And I suppose the speed limiter thing is useful for the future, Charlie. I mean, the other drivers have to be, obviously, the ones in the cars have to be driving, you know, just as safe as the one in the e-scooters. But they seem to have a few problems at the moment, Charlie. I think I would tweak them so that they have put speed limiter on them for certain areas. And because that's necessary, because it's causing more problems otherwise than it does solutions. I get all this, like we go to electric cars and everything like that with sustainable fuel, and e-scooters sounds fine. We might as well just do e-bikes and everything like that, because e-scooters seem to cause a bit more problems than they do. I don't mind the idea. I think there needs to be a few tweaks to them because they're clearly causing problems. And I think then definitely after this incident needs to be some sort of law for e-scooters, because they seem to be causing a few bit of problems, I think.
I think, Zach, as well, my view on this is that e-scooters are very dangerous. And I have to say, I mean, I kind of feel that I see them. I saw one. I went out for a walk earlier today in the lovely weather, and I saw someone on an e-scooter. And I thought to myself, really, I've seen these things on the road, and I'll tell you what, I know the concept of e-scooters is interesting. I think that they seem like they're a future in terms of sustainable travelling. I understand they're more greener than, say, using cars, for example, with using fuel. But I must admit, there is a lot of deaths. I mean, this 16-year-old I heard today that died, and a 20-year-old who did sadly crash into this person was driving a Fiat Punto, which is a hatchback, by the way. Sadly, was he taken to custody? And I have to say, there are so many deaths this year. I don't know the exact number of deaths that have been caused by e-scooters, but there was one today in Bromley. I just have to say,
looking at this article, Charlie, I'm just looking at the article, what actually happened. So he was arrested on the suspicion of failing to stop at the scene of the collision, caused the death by a dangerous driver, and provided positive alcohol breath test. So he was drunk. So is it when they say, "Oh, e-scooters are causing an accident"? Actually, it's the driver it's the driver of the other cars that's causing the accident, not the e-scooter. The e-scooter, I believe, was stolen at the scene as well, which is not great. But nevertheless, Charlie, if it's the case that drivers are acting like idiots and crashing into these things, then the problem is clearly not the e-scooters. The problem is the drivers. Yeah. So to then they can start playing, "Oh, we shouldn't start saying e-scooters, they cause death and everything like that." No, it's the drivers' attitudes that have to change. If the other drivers are causing it, then yes. Then that's fault, not the e-scooters. If the e-scooter drivers are causing it, then yes, then that's their fault. Then let's look at it all again. But it can't be easy. It can't be the fault of e-scooters. We start scrapping it because some bloke in a car kills their death. No, that's not the solution.
No, that's definitely not. No, I mean
you can improve the driver's behaviour. It's the driver that like an idiot, and then it's his fault. Can't be the e-scooter one.
I mean, Zach, there'll be some arguments to say that if people fall off e-scooters, that could be a serious issue, because obviously, you think about it, you're on holding the handlebars. If you lose control, and obviously, by the way, this is not a car, this is a scooter. If you lose control, that is something different. I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, to all the listeners out there, please comment down below. What do you think about e-scooters? Should they be banned or should they become more mainstream? Please let me know down in the comments. But moving on from that first one, Zach, on e-scooters, I want to touch on Guto Harry now. In this week's edition of the Viewpoint, because he has been under a lot of pressure in terms of media scrutiny from many MPs, but like from Ofcom. Now, earlier this week, if you watched GB News and you watched the show Brazier and Maroki, this is originally Colin Brazier's slot, but he is now replacing Andrew Neil at the moment whilst he's on a break. And I'll come on to GB News later because there's some big news to talk about. But Zach, on Tuesday, of course, Guto Harry took the knee live on air. Now, on this Viewpoint, I know very well that there will be questions being asked about is taking the knee a responsible thing to do. That is what I say to people. But what did you make of what Guto Harry done on Tuesday on GB News? What do you make of his viewpoint about what happened?
So let me view it from the perspective of what I saw, right? Okay, and because there's a factor behind this, Charlie, that you got to remember. There is a factor behind this about editorial standards and about freedom of speech. Because this is I'll try and get it up actually. What actually happened, because this is very serious. What happened and everything like that, and the consequences of what happened. But nevertheless, Charlie, he basically, as you said, took the knee live on air, and this was obviously in response to a discussion of whether England the England players should be taking a knee or anything like that. Here we go. I've got it up here. I'll show it on to you in a minute. But nevertheless, he was in discussion. And GB News say they got standards and stuff like that. But there's also standards that they're very much welcome to free speech from either side. That's good. And it applies to presenters. They said it. Andrew Neil said it before, right? Okay, that it's applied to presenters' opinions, I guess, and all that, as long as they give the other side a fair hearing and stuff like that. So let's get to the statement where, Guto Harris obviously on Tuesday took the knee whilst discussing England players. And he took the knee because he understood why they were taking the knee. He didn't think it was, if it was took the knee normal time just for the sake of it, he thought it was. Guto Harris stated that, he wouldn't normally take the knee because he thought it was looked for a political movement and stuff like that. There's always a divide over that sort of thing, Charlie. But he understood why the England players were taking it, because it was a solidarity with, anti-racism. Plain and simple. It doesn't mean you have to be linked to Black Lives Matter, the movement. Black Lives Matter is the principle and all forms of anti-racism. And that's good. So he took the knee, live on air as an opinion, and expressed it. And I thought he was entitled to do that. His co-host disagreed, Mercy Moroki. She said she wouldn't. She's entitled to say that. And that was fine. Later in the day, I think this is the release from the 15th, which was the Thursday, 2 days after that. Now, that video went viral, by the way, and it caused a bit of an outroar because the audience, Charlie, is mainly those who are probably, say, right-wing, right of centre, and they have political views that they maybe don't like supporting the knee. And once they saw this, there was a right old outroar on social media, the usual lot, that GB News became woke, and I'm not going to be tuning in every morning because the presenters took the knee. They become woke and everything like that. Then we had on Wednesday, let me get it up actually. We had this statement, not that one, this one, from GB News. He said GB News stand it said they put it Foursquare, but I think it meant Foursquare against racism in all its forms. We do not have a company line on taking a knee. Some, I guess, have been in favour, some against. All are anti-racist. We have an editorial standards all GB News journalists uphold. On Tuesday, a contribution presenter took the knee live on air, and this was an unacceptable breach of our standards. We let both sides of the argument down by oversight simply a very complex issue. Now, when I read that statement, Charlie, when I read part one of this statement here, when I read part one of this statement here, when I read part two of this here, they are totally contradictory to each other. Number one says, we do not have a company line on taking the knee. Also, on Tuesday, a contribution presenter took the knee live on air, and this is an unacceptable breach of standards. Now, you think about this, Charlie. Okay, number one says, we don't have a company line taking the knee. Number two, it's unacceptable standards to take the knee. I have to say, Charlie, I think this is so hypocritical and there's such a conflict of what the first one says. And the fact is, right, I don't think he resigned because he took the knee. I think he resigned, right? Okay, I think the presenter, he got suspended because because GB News realised, not because of taking a knee, it was Farage or something, I don't know. Let's just say, I don't know, who else could it be? If the right wing presenter, every right wing presenter in the world decided that taking a knee was okay, and the audience was okay with it, they didn't want to get sacked. If they didn't want to, and everyone else was, they wouldn't have sacked him. But the fact is, because they realise their viewing figures are going down, Charlie, and their viewing figures are going down. They saw this. Everyone started tuning out. He got sacked for that. I think that's the reason why he got suspended, because everyone started tuning out and stopped watching, and their viewing figures went totally down to the point where nobody was watching. I think that's what it was. It wasn't a breach of standards. It only breaches standards to their audience, Charlie. That's what I think. And it's hypocritical for a company or an organisation that says they welcome freedom of speech and is against cancel culture and wokeness, yet basically cancel a presenter for showing their freedom of expression. I think they ended up with an absolute PR disaster, GB News. It's been a PR disaster from the way it's been reacted, to the way the audience reacted. It has been a total and absolute disaster. And I'm sorry, this is hypocrisy at the greatest level, Charlie, of how this has been done. I'm sorry. I think his sacking is pathetic. It is a form of cancel culture itself. And I think it's only it appears to me that you can only have freedom of expression or free speech only if it agrees with your side. That's how I think this has all been handled, right? Okay, and I think because of collapsing audiences, it's not because of editorial standards or anything like that. I think the only reason why he was suspended and has now left the station, by the way, because he's written an article in the Times explaining his reason, and he sent a resignation letter to the CEO. He said as well, he discussed this with his producers, his co-host, the whole production team. So clearly, the fact it got viral, Oh, thank you. Okay. The fact that it got viral, Charlie, I think it's hypocritical, Charlie. I'm going to get my tea anyway. I'll be back in a mo.
Yeah, that's fine, Zach. I will just make my point whilst I'm here, which is that, and I do have a different side to this. That's why this segment's called the Viewpoint. We have two different views. I have to say, what Guto Harry done, I condemn what he done. I thought it was, I understand that the BLM is a movement that people are very much interested in, but I think it's Marxist, and I have to say, Guto Harry taking a knee on the other day was, I think, unacceptable for the audience that GB News represents. So that's my view on this. Please comment down below, guys. I'd like to get your opinion on this. Should Guto Harry, that's fine, Zach. Do you think Guto Harry should have resigned for taking a knee? Please comment down below. This is what the Viewpoint is, guys, about getting your opinions out. Please comment down below on YouTube or Facebook about this issue. But moving on now, Zach, to Presswatch. We're going to be coming back to news in a minute, but moving on to Presswatch now. And Zach, I want to talk about a couple of things on Presswatch tonight. I want to start quickly with the floods in Europe. I just want to say that there's been a horrible floods across Germany. I think that the numbers that have died have been over 150, I think.
Yeah.
What's your current update on the situation regarding these floods?
No, the floods, Charlie, are horrible, mate. I saw what was happening. I think over 100 people have died, Charlie, if I'm correct in saying as well, which is awful. And it's not good. This is clearly, there's been a heavy bunch of rain. There's multiple affected areas in Germany. Let me just see. I've got a map up here as well. It looks like several areas have been affected, Charlie. I think it's Bonn, somewhere near Dortmund, Dusseldorf as well. Let's see. There's lots of villages, I think, Charlie, as well, that's sadly had these floods. Trier, Zell, it's horrible, Charlie. 180, the death toll I've read is, I think, at the moment. So it's not good. And so it is a very sad situation. Many houses have been ruined. The riverbanks obviously went quite bad. And what's scary about this, Charlie? I think what's scary about this, Charlie, is this is, Germany's not full of, seas and everything like that. There's mainly inland and everything. So the rain must have been huge. The rain was obviously massive. And yeah, it's a horrible sight to see, Charlie. It really was.
Angela Merkel was contacted for comment by that, and I believe she's been around to see the devastation in Germany. So we'll keep you and I updated on the floods in Germany. But moving on now, Zach, to the main part of Presswatch tonight is Australia's zero COVID policy, very much continuing because Melbourne has once again gone into another lockdown, and it's the fifth one. I mean, I cannot believe it. We've got Melbourne going for this lockdown cycle, and also tighter restrictions in New South Wales. I mean, Zach, my question is, how comes Australia, half of it is in lockdown? I find this quite extraordinary.
Half of Australia in lockdown, Charlie, because they've got a zero COVID policy. Their vaccine rollout has not been as fast, as say us, for example. In fact, many places apart from us have not had quick lockdown vaccination. Right, if you're going to exclude the likes of Israel, Canada, and the United States, but nevertheless, they're presuming a zero COVID strategy, Charlie. In fact, Sydney, I think recently as well, Charlie, I think tightened their lockdown cases. They had 111 new cases and everything like that as well, which is why they're in lockdown again. They shut down non-essential retail, construction sites. They're basically banned. 600,000 residents have been banned. Victoria's got 19 cases. It's basically containment, Charlie. Containing the virus, controlling the virus, stopping the virus. It's still zero COVID. I suppose their idea of this is, because we don't have the vaccines, because the virus they think is still deadly, and they want to get rid of, variants and all that sort of thing. It's they're not, they're trying to control the virus. I think in total, let me get the case numbers up actually. Yesterday they recorded in total 127 new cases across all regions of Australia. The 7-day average is 114. So the cases have actually gone up. I think, let's go to the 1st of July. It was about 33. It's now 127. So, that's the purpose. No new deaths, though. That's the thing. From what I have seen, Charlie, there's no new deaths. It's a good news, but nevertheless, zero COVID in Australia, and it's causing they're just going the full lockdown approach. Yeah,
and Zach, whilst we're here, we're going to have a quick video from Daniel Andrews, Premier of Victoria, on his announcement going into the latest COVID-19 news in Victoria. Have a listen to this.
Thanks for joining us this morning. We have 16 new cases of coronavirus in the state of Victoria. We have now 217 exposure sites as a result of these outbreaks. That's up from about 160 exposure sites this time yesterday. So growth in case numbers, growth in exposure sites makes a couple of points. I think one, this is wildly infectious and moves really quickly. I think we all know and understand that. But two, the fact that we're finding people and getting to people as quickly as we are is just clear evidence of how hard our contact tracers and public health team are working. And I'm very grateful to them. And I send a message of support to them. They're doing an amazing job for all of us. And the fact that I can confirm that all 16 of those cases are linked to other cases we already knew about. Now, some of them will have been in the community for a period of time, and we'll come back to you with some further details around that. We're doing some work around exposure days across the entire positive group, but we are finding people very fast. We're establishing the links between them and other positive cases. So it is unfolding as we had hoped it would. That's not to say that any extra case is good news. It's certainly not to say that we would ever wish for people to be infected with this virus. Can I just also make the point that 53,283 test results were received today? That's a strong number, a very strong number, and I thank each and every one of those Victorians who waited in a queue, got tested and got their results in the last 24 hours. That's how we protect you and your family, and indeed every family. So we want to keep those numbers as high as we can. Any symptoms whatsoever, please come forward and get tested. We'll get your result back to you as fast as possible, and you will have played your part in running this outbreak to ground and us getting back to normal. Now, in terms of where we find ourselves vis-a-vis Tuesday evening, Tuesday midnight, it is too early for us to determine whether we'll be able to come out of this lockdown at midnight on Tuesday night.
Right, thanks Daniel Andrews there for the update regarding Victoria's lockdown, and we'll confirm more news on that in due course, whether the lockdown will be lifted on Tuesday, and we'll keep you updated with all that news. But moving on now, Zach, from Presswatch to a couple of things before I finish the show. Zach, have you got a message for any of the listeners for tomorrow for Freedom Day in the UK?
Well, Charlie, I think, I think the message out there is obviously people have got to be careful, mate. I suppose I have responsibility, you have a responsibility, mate. I think we've all got a responsibility to be careful. I'm not changing my lifestyle, to be fair, Charlie, at the moment, because of what's happening, the rising case rates. I'm sure there's, mate, probably the many that probably will start changing. I imagine there's people that are going to take that caution, mate. But yeah, I think it's. Well, are they going to go potty? I don't know. I hope not. I think I hope people are just cautious, mate, because we don't know what people are going to be like when they start taking their masks off and everything like that. It's not a legal requirement anymore. So yeah, stay safe. I think.
And Zach, can I just say something? I'm going to make a prediction here on my show before I move on to GB News. Nigel Farage predicted we could be back in some form of COVID-19 lockdown, under lockdown restrictions by the autumn. I think like September he mentioned. I'm going to predict by at least October or November, the government will reintroduce social distancing measures. I just have a fear that this Freedom Day will be temporary, and then it will be the days counting down again to the next lockdown with the ticking of a clock. And not to say a full lockdown. I don't think we can afford that. But I'm talking bringing back masks, bringing back work from home guidance. I just fear in the winter that I think they're going to bring back these issues. And you've got to think for schools as well, Zach, now the bubbles have been dropped and kids need to be in school, don't they? I mean, what do you make of the bubble announcement for schools?
Well, I it's inevitable they're going to go that way, Charlie. I think, with the bubbles and scrapping the bubbles and for school kids and all that sort of thing. I suppose logistically, I think schools will probably find that easier. In terms of predicting if we're ever going to go back into some sort of restrictions again, I don't think we'll have a full lockdown, Charlie.
No, definitely not.
I don't think so. I think there'll probably be, at worst, October, you say, September, some restrictions, maybe on social distancing, maybe on capacity limits, potentially. I think that if they are going to do anything, they'll probably get compulsory mask wearing back again. I think it will eventually come back, because they can't surely get away with just recommendations to wear face coverings. It'll be ridiculous, mate, and all that sort of thing. I don't agree with, getting rid of face masks and everything like that whilst we've got a variant going around and all that sort of stuff. I think it's going to cause more problems than it solves. And there's going to be so many youngsters that are probably going to get COVID, and there's obviously the quarter 100,000 a day. I'm afraid I think there will probably be. I think they will get to the point where restrictions are going to be introduced, and that's sad for me to predict that. But I think this is going to be an example of how not to do things. I'm afraid, and I'm not entirely confident. You can tell by how I say that.
I don't think Zach will go back. As you said, I don't think it's going to be like January where we're all at home again because of the vaccine rollout. No. But I think it will be like, as we mentioned, face masks, capacity limits. Could they go back to the tier system? Maybe. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, I don't think they'll.
I could even see the wider. I could see them trialing out and with these crazy vaccine passports for the winter as well.
They may well do. That may well be an option to keep businesses open. I suppose the difference is that you either restrict them automatically, in some way, but I think you either restrict them by putting restrictions on them nationally, or you put COVID vaccine passports in, which is in some ways discriminatory, but may well be necessary. I think it will come to that in the future, Charlie. I think that's what it will be. I genuinely think it will come to that. Rather sadly. But I think it will come to that. And it's not, I suppose, if you're looking at it from an economic perspective, if you want to keep one way open, you'll have to impose some sort of thing if that's going to happen, what's going to happen in the future. I don't know, but I thought that's the choice that I think this is going to have to make.
Yeah. Right? I mean, I am anti-lockdown, but I just know what the government are like. They're so addicted to power that I think it's just important that they stop. I want to say this now. They need to stop interfering with our lives, and we've just got to learn to live with the virus. Obviously, face coverings, I do understand about public transport. So, I mean, Sadiq Khan has just going to make TfL compulsory mask wearing on TfL lines. So,
I agree with it. I agree. Like the Sadiq Khan making mask wearing compulsory. I know, like the Labour mayors, like Andy Byrne and Steve Rotherham, all those sort of Labour mayors in big cities and stuff like that, are making that case, because obviously there will be people, Charlie, that will go on. I won't feel comfortable without people wearing a face covering, and I think it's necessary because you don't want people to feel unsafe on a bus or train, because obviously because of the restriction limits, Charlie, there'll probably be hundreds of them going on these trains now. I think the mask wearing, I've seen obviously scientific studies saying that mask wearing is better and it probably stops slow spread. So the trouble is, Charlie, I think at the end of the day, if you make masks, let's just say advisory, you get these silly idiots sometimes that go on the tube and stuff like that will just make a fuss out of it, and then you end up with people arguing on trains, and it gets into fist fights, and it's ridiculous, Charlie. I think it's ridiculous. I think it should be compulsory. I think TfL is right to make compulsory. I think other train companies don't have the power to force this, unfortunately, which is rather a shame. But if I'm, I think mask wearing should be a thing still.
Please comment down below, guys, what you think of the government's wishy-washy messaging. Please comment down below, because I want to hear. I mean, I'm very confused myself what these rules mean, and half of them on masks, the guidance. By the way, I think the guidance is going to be reviewed in the 23rd of September, just to confirm. I think that's when legal review is going to be taking place of these restrictions. So September, towards the end of September, there will be a review into the UK's pandemic preparedness for the winter. So yes, step 4 will be enjoyed over the summer, but winter.
How long we don't know. We don't know.
How long we don't know, but it will be throughout the summer holidays. And just to confirm, schools will be going back in September, 100%. With that, but Zach, moving on now to the final thing. Just before we finish, I'll quick mention, because GB News is having some programming changes for next week. And I understand, Zach, there is a big name who is going to be having more of a cohesive role on air to try and improve viewership.
Yeah.
And that is Nigel Farage.
Yes. Barrage to Farage is now on air 4 days a week for an hour Monday to Thursdays. I think you know my opinion very well, Charlie. I don't know how you can partially present a programme with Nigel Farage on the air. I suppose if you forget about his political views and everything like that, and you know all that sort of thing, I don't mind him presenting. Let's just take out all his political views and everything like that. If you watched it and thought, oh yeah, this is a normal TV presenter and anything like that, you would have thought, okay, he's all right actually. And then when you add his political views into fact, his well-known political views, I mean, blooming heck's the key of the Brexit movement for years, and then you listen to his political things, thinking, oh God, I don't want him on screen and stuff like that. And yeah, it's like that's me, really, Charlie. It's a no for me. Let's just say that. I know that sounds a bit Simon Cowell when I say that, but it's a no for me. I might watch it on the first night or something like that, but I probably won't watch it every night because you know, it just wouldn't be my sort of television. I know one of my mates who's text me over the last today about it, and he's very excited. Although he's known to be a Farage supporter anyway. I mean, his political views are just a flip flop really half sometimes. So yeah,
yeah. I saw him on GB News today, and he wasn't very happy with the government, particularly Boris's levelling up strategy as well. He mentioned the fact that if they're pouring sugar all over on taxes and you're raising taxes on food and that, it's just he reacted to Boris's levelling up speech and basically criticised that. I do agree with him on that point because Boris's levelling up speech was more levelling down.
I understand
it was more of a levelling down speech, if you ask me. But yeah, this shows Zach, for Nigel Farage to have a show who used to be an LBC and he used to be a political leader of the UKIP, the Brexit party. Of course, he brought the Brexit message out. Do you think Nigel Farage will be successful on GB News? Do you think listeners will want to tune into his show, or do you think his show could be a disaster?
Yeah, he has a loyal base, Charlie. Nigel Farage has a loyal base. I think he got decent viewing figures in LBC. Listening figures, sorry. Viewing figures, will that translate? Maybe not, maybe. It depends. I think might be able to is a temporary fix for a problem, Charlie, that on GB News that has been lasting for weeks now. Their ratings declined, and obviously due to how he got sacked, they went up again a little bit. I think that's what they're doing. They're coming in to save it. It'll probably be more cultural based stuff on his show, unfortunately, and you know that's how I see it because I think it's more culture wars. This is what GB News is about and everything like that. But that's how I see it. But we'll see. I could be wrong. I could be blown back by it. I'm not likely to be, though. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Nigel Farage gets on. Presenting tomorrow, by the way, 7 till 8, after Michelle Dubry's show, Dubs & Co. And if you want to see GB News, you can tune in now for Tonight Live with Dan Wootton. That's currently on air at the moment. If you want to go and visit GB News to see all the latest coverage from the station. But that's it, guys. I'm going to have to wrap the Charlie Tolhurst show up right there for you. I'll be back again, same time, same place next week, around 8 o'clock for another edition of the Charlie Tolhurst show. In the meantime, guys, please stay safe out there and enjoy the freedoms that you'll be received tomorrow in a very safe way. Thanks so much for listening, everyone. Take care. Goodbye.